Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine.
Hey, if you just press play, you're missing out on 18 minutes of us talking about Christmas traditions and how it's not exactly exciting for everybody. And so Melanie and I were to kind of, which I'll introduce again in a minute, but Melanie and I were talking about kind of the complicated dynamics that come in, like gift giving and types of traditions that you're going into, setting up lights, the whole community shebang, and just how, like, yeah, it's especially as Christians too, like if it's about Christ being born, like what's up with the gifts and kind of how it just sometimes feels a little muddled or confused. If you want to hear about that, support us $3 a month on the Cinematic Doctrine Patreon, link in the show notes. There are other benefits to supporting on Patreon. You will hear about those as you listen to the rest of this episode. All kinds of stuff. Again, all available for $3. You can support more if you'd like. We have goals we want to reach. You'll again hear about those. But we are here to talk about Where the Scary Things Are, which was semi-voted on by Patreon supporters. It was a tie between Bullet Train and Where the Scary Things Are. And when I tried to press Daniel about, like, which did he prefer doing, he would not tell me. I was like, Dan, what do you want to do? And he goes, what do you want to do? I was like, no, Dan, I asked you first. And he goes, well, you sound like you have a bias. And I was like, I do have a bias, but I'm asking you. And, well, it doesn't matter because he's not here today anyway. So, but I chose out of the two Where the Scary Things Are because everyone's probably seen Bullet Train already at this point, and nobody has seen Where the Scary Things Are, except for me, Melanie, and probably half of the movie for Daniel. But again, like you said, he's not here. But Melanie is back joining us on the show. Hi, Melanie. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing pretty good. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, and we're doing another bad movie.
I know.
It's great. Which for me is really exciting.
Yes.
I just a little background Where the Scary Things Are. I only found out because on October I was just browsing Paramount Plus's scant collection of movies. They don't have a lot, and the streaming on there is not very good anyway. But there is this movie called Where the Scary Things Are, and the description was just basically that, like, teenagers find a monster, turn it into an influencer, and the monster's dangerous. And I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. I want to watch that. Put it on the backlog. Never got to it until maybe late November. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And not because, Melanie's shaking her head. But it's like, it is bad. And I started telling everybody at work, I was like, you got to see it. There's this one scene in it that to me is laugh out loud funny. You got to check it out. And we'll get to there. At least I'll make clear what it is for me that sold it. But we're going to kind of do what we did with Hangman's Curse, where we're going to assume no one's seen it, which it turns out Hangman's Curse, apparently everybody had seen if you saw us on Twitter, but everyone was going, oh my gosh, I watched this as a kid. And it was the most interaction we've ever gotten. So I really ate some crow there. I just explained the movie and it's like they didn't even need it.
Right.
But we're going to go from beginning to end explaining the movie, so there won't be a description in the beginning here. And as I'm describing the movie, the two of us, me and Melanie, will cut in and share thoughts and respond to it. Let's start the movie, because I have something like 12 pages here. Where the scary things are, we open it on intro credits, A Field of Screams. This is a real place on real Earth. It's in Pennsylvania. It's actually nearby, which is kind of cool. In fact, in the credits, it said it was catered by like a mom and pop pizza shop, which to me is kind of adorable. It's really not far at all. And Field of Screams, this is not an advertisement, but they are open at least once or twice every month for like a special theme of that month. And then in October, I think they're open the whole time. And I'll just come out the gate and say, shooting at Field of Screams was a good idea here. From the start, the movie looks good setting wise. I watched some really bad movies, and I think this is benefited by having like basically being shot at a like Halloween park. Like if you've seen Hellfest, this is what that is, except it's a real place, whereas Hellfest is actually, it could have been shot at a real place. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
very cool. Opening credits. We introduced several characters. They have the artwork of some Tumblr-esque cartoons, and it lists off their names: Ayla, Starry, Snack, Scribble, Bonbon, Max, Bran, Donahue, Mighty, Jenny, and Oingo Boingo. 4 of those names I completely made up because I don't know what these names are. And the parents of the movie call them these names. So I guess
that blew my mind. I just was like, it's rare that a parent will call their kid a nickname that's like obscure. Like if your child is named Michael and it's normal for the nickname to be Mike.
Yes.
Not like Snack or
Snack? What is
Scribble.
that?
Like why would you call them that? It just makes absolutely no sense.
I really don't know. It was very confusing. I didn't know if it was like a Gen Z thing, like if they're trying to be like, oh, these are their names and their parents are being respectful by not dead naming them. I don't know. The movie isn't progressive like that, so it's not like that's a thing here.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, you know, they got these weird names, and very, very strange.
And one other thing I'll say about the intro, the music is terrible because I don't understand the fart noises.
Oh, yes, I know. Yes,
it's just like this, like womp, like sound in the music, but it's. I literally
it's like
wrote
strings
down
music, and then they put in like this, like it's not good. It's like almost industrial. But not good industrial. It's no bueno. So the movie starts. YouTube video of Bum Fights, a show made by the kid named Bran, who definitely is 12 years old. At first you think it is fake, but then it comes to a wide shot, and you see these kids are walking down the road, and Bran is showing his friend the bum fights, going, wasn't this so funny? And the one friend like just outright says, like, those are real people, that's not funny. And then you as an audience go, oh, see, I thought we were setting up that this is like a fake YouTube channel.
Yeah.
No, this 12-year-old is hanging a $20 bill in front of 2 homeless people, and then the homeless people fight. Which as a concept is so silly and fake that to me, I'm like, all right, I'm in for a good ride.
Oh my
Because you've already broken all the rules of like what's supposed to happen in a movie like this.
It's like you already know you're just in a very obscure place. Like you're just what you're saying out loud, Melvin, I hope just helps people to understand like nothing of it only gets worse from here.
Yes.
A 12-year-old awesome. Hanging a $20 bill, encouraging like and hosting these bum fights. And it's just like it's so ridiculous.
I love it. It's great. It's such a good setup. It's a setup for the movie as opposed to the characters, even though that is the characters.
Yeah.
You may not know this, but the easiest way you can show your support for Cinematic Doctrine is to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. So press pause and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And then press play again so you can hear the rest of the show.
As they keep going, Ayla is the girl of the group. She starts screaming at Bran to stop filming her butt, and that you better get used to this yelling and screaming because this is all Ayla does the whole movie. Constantly mad. Very, very, very annoying. And frankly, like not much acting because they're just mad the whole time. So there's not a whole lot going on. All the kids were sneaking into the Field of Screams. They were going to hang out. They briefly mentioned that they dock people as they're talking. I'm assuming this is a different form of doxing. It's not entirely clear, but this is something that they do. Like they're a gang, but they're not really a gang. But what they essentially do is they find things. I'm thinking by context clues, because this movie is deceptively vague.
Yes.
That they figure out things about people that they're ashamed of, and then they like blackmail them into it. So that's what they do. Yeah, we're really kicking off this movie with characters we like, aren't we? So nobody's likable.
No.
And for a horror movie, that's bearable, I'll say, because that's setting you up for like, okay, I can't wait for we get comeuppance. We're going to have at least one or two characters who are maybe becoming good out of the bad group. And so they'll be the heroes, whatever. But we don't, I won't get ahead of myself. We'll keep going.
Yeah.
So they all break into the Field of Screams, but then they immediately get caught by a security guard. There is really bad music during this chase scene, and it's very, very bad. And then we get a scene of everybody in their cars being chewed out by their parents. And it is not good. Like we said, the parents all call them by their nicknames. We pretty much get their characters from this point. Ayla is just mean. Mighty. These are, like I said, these are real names. Mighty, well, the four that I named earlier were not, but Mighty is Insulin Kid. Also, he smells. That's it. Bran can't say words correctly, so he says like monetize instead of monetize, and he says that's totally Monday instead of money. He's the 12-year-old kid who films bum fights. Snack is the closest we get to a protagonist, and in my opinion, the closest we get to one of the young actors being particularly good at performing. I am very lax with criticisms of performances. I think that acting is difficult, not just as somebody who doesn't do it, but also like recognizing you're having to act natural in front of lights that are extremely hot and bright. You sometimes in some cases have to act to things that aren't real. And so I get it, but the performances here are not good, but Snack, I think, shows promise if he chooses to continue with his career, if he has one. Then we have Max, who has Max facts, and he always looks nervous, perpetually looks nervous or gassy.
The
I'm
same
not sure.
face.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. And then Scribble is the hot, long-haired skater boy who also has the exact same fashion sense as my boss, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's a fact.
Oh my god!
They both do the head bandana thing.
Yes,
hold their hair
that's so funny.
But that doesn't make Scribble not hot, so here we are. So anyways, we move forward. There's a teacher scene. It discusses the purpose of the movie, as Script Writing 101 will tell you. The topic of the discussion is the viral nature of creating local myths, or like a Bloody Mary equivalent. In this case, they do that photo from a couple years ago of the scary face in the bathroom that would supposedly show up in kids' videos to tell children to kill themselves. It was not a real event. Even though like it was a real myth that was going around online, it was not real. And his whole topic is about like how this becomes something we believe socially, even though it might not be true. And so he then asked the kids to do a project, which is essentially make up a myth and see how it kind of viral and takes over. And in this scene, a character is covering their face. It's a character we will never see her face. We will never see her face. Hair is covering her face the whole time. I guess that's what they just assume Hot Topic people look like. And she is crying, and Ayla just sort of looks at her and like barks at her and then is like, why are you crying? And she's just like, you're so annoying, she's always crying, calls her the B word. It's very weird. And Regardless, the teacher is compassionate and just is like, hey, you can go do whatever. And Ayla, as the kid is leaving the class, is like, why is she always crying? This is ridiculous. It's great. And then this is essentially the complicating incident, right? They have to make a myth, and they have to have it have influence of some kind.
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis gets a complaint from a student, and the principal chews him out, puts him on warning. The complaint is essentially against Jenny, saying that she cries too much and holds the class back. But the principal interprets it as the teacher's fault. You in particular, with teaching background, it sounded like you had something to say, at least to how he reacted to this complaint.
It's just the whole scene is just not real in that. And I mean, I know that we know none of this is based in something that would really happen, not even just with the premise of the film, but like you said, the very first scene, you're like, okay, I know what I'm watching. But it's just the conversation that they have where she just goes up to him and says, all this stuff is inappropriate and you can't talk about these things in your classroom. And he's just like, well, it's Jenny. She's holding everybody back. And I'm just like, you just threw, like you had said it earlier as well. You just like threw your student under the bus like basically all this is happening because she is holding the class back. And it's like, there's just a lot of things that are wrong with that. You know, I think a teacher would not phrase it that way. At least I hope at least not in front of their administrator.
Yes. And
that child would actually or should be getting services if there is something that is going wrong, is kind of going wrong, like behind the scenes. Like maybe she has some emotional issues or just like trauma from her past that she's trying to work through. And maybe that's why she's so scared of things. Mm-hmm. What's confusing is that the Ayla, however they pronounce her name, she makes it seem like she cries every 10 minutes. She doesn't belong with us. And I don't know if they're trying to allude that maybe she's has special needs.
Like special needs. Yeah.
Yeah. Or because that's not the sense that you get. Like she seems more emotionally and socially emotionally distraught, socially awkward than actually having some kind of or having needs that would prevent her from being in a traditional classroom setting. So I feel like that wouldn't even be part of that conversation where he would have with the administrator saying she's holding everybody back. That would be a lot different. And if anything, he should be having her speak to a counselor and not just like having her go out of the room. You know,
take 5 minutes to step out of the class just to come back in, I guess.
It was very, very strange. And student complaints, I have never heard of that.
Yeah, I guess parent complaints could be more
right. Like
reasonable.
Parents will write letters to teachers, or maybe the student will write a letter to the administrator saying like this teacher is unfair because of XYZ. I'm sure that that's happened, but just for her to just go in and say, I got this letter and I want you to read this. It was just a very like the whole super dynamic weird. I think is just very, very weird. And I don't think that the teachers would react or the administrator would react in that way. If anything, the administrator would probably say, I mean, if they're
reasonable
and competent, and they would say, what's going on with Jenny? We have concerns about her. Clearly there's something going on, rather than saying you're not doing your job. It's just they could have set that up a lot differently to make it seem like they're gunning for him in some way.
Yeah. I don't know what that was about.
It was
just ridiculous.
It's just very, very odd.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. And Ayla, I don't understand why she hates her. And I was hoping that eventually we would find out. And then there's really just no reason.
There's no reason. It's awesome. Well, I can't wait till we get to the reason, but or at least the semi reason we get in the movie. But so the whole gang is then hanging out at Fatal Screams again. So it seems to not matter that the security guard caught them at the beginning, because they just for the rest of the movie keep going back to Fatal Screams. Brand is then setting photos of the guys of Ayla's butt. Mostly just looks like a mannequin in shorts. It's really not that provocative. All of the rest of the scenes essentially are the same whenever it's stuff like this. Really not provocative stuff. Regardless, despite Ayla having no context for what's going on and just hears a snicker, she starts yelling at everybody and is wondering what's going on. It's just weird. She has no reason to suspect that this is what they're doing. Snack covers up and says that they're probably just laughing over Jenny crying in class. I don't know. I guess this is funny. So that's why they're laughing. Ayla gets angrier, going, she's just the worst, always crying in class. I filed a complaint against her because she's always crying and it stops us every 10 minutes. She specifically says she has nothing to do with Mr. Lewis. Womp womp. Oh, well,
Right.
Mr. Lewis got in trouble. Oh, well. And of course she could file the complaint. We knew that. Like the context clues in the movie told us. We didn't have to hear it from her lips. Her motivation here is she's just frustrated that her class is disrupted by Jenny all the time. So Ayla is basically this bully who's also diligent about grades because she's specifically frustrated that Jenny gets good grades just like she does, even though she always cries in class.
And that would be a conversation for the teacher.
What,
that would
the fact
be
that because the teacher's grading them.
If I were an administrator, I would say, how are you interacting with Jenny? How are you grading her for her work or her? Are you letting her slide and just kind of giving her A's like everybody else? That's actually something that would be of concern and something to talk to him about, as opposed to worrying about some kind of letter another student gave him. And how would she know that Jenny's getting the same grades? Maybe Scribble hacked the system.
Yeah,
and
maybe
like has all the dirt on everybody. I don't know.
Maybe they're talking, but then later on she's like excited because they get her personal cell phone number. I'm not sure, but we'll get to there when we get there. But Ayla decides then that they need to kill this project. No, they need to succeed. Pardon, but they need to succeed with the project she says kill for Mr. Lewis, which means getting right to the edge. So basically she's like, we need to kill it on this project. And during the class, they're hearing about how this this internet myth was telling kids to kill themselves. And of course it wasn't true. But then Snack is like, what? So Ayla, you want us to like scare kids into killing themselves? And then Ayla inches closer to Snack and goes, we will get right to the edge. So it's essentially like, okay, yeah, I guess we'll do a project that makes kids kill themselves.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever.
It's so frustrating.
What is it
Melvin?
with bad movies wanting to have that be a subject matter? I don't understand.
I
It's
don't
not
know
like,
either.
we talked about 2 movies, so bad movies could no, like it seems to be a thing that bad movies play with the concept of suicide. I don't understand.
Right.
Snack then seems indifferent. We get a scene of him listening to a podcast at home. It's probably this movie is named after a podcast called Where the Scary Things Are.
Oh, okay.
And so it's possible that he's listening to that. Regardless, at the end there's a cameo, an audio cameo with the podcasters, but then he also has a heart-to-heart with a robot vacuum Tamagotchi about existential destabilization. I'm not sure what's going on, but he essentially talks to this robot.
Random.
I don't understand. Bran knocks on Snack's window to have him shoot an episode of Bum Wars, not Bum Fights, which is just a video of Bran using a lighter to set a homeless man's beanie on fire.
There's so many problems with that scene.
It just happens.
It just happens. And
then it cuts away.
And then it's over. And it's like, why are you friends? Like, I don't understand why any of these kids are friends with anybody. Like, it just, like, their whole...
50 minutes in, you're watching this one scene take place. It's like a montage, and nobody's happy in the montage.
No.
And you're just like, why are they friends? What's going on?
Why would they be friends? I
don't know.
And I don't think weird. A girl like her would hang out with them, if I'm going to be honest. Like,
no, a girl like her would not hang out with them. They're kind of geeky and like...
like it just because she's such a bully and she thinks that she's better than everyone else, I would imagine she would want to be with
10 scribbles.
Cooler people. Or maybe there are just no cool people at the school, so that's just, a lack of options. I don't know.
It was either Jenny or all of them. No other options.
Yeah, it's just the friendship dynamic between all of them just doesn't seem to really make any sense.
It's so bad.
Her motivations, their motivations, all of it.
Bran starts showing Mighty the Bum Wars fight, and clearly Mighty also doesn't like it. So again, I don't know why anyone's friends with him.
Right. I'm just like, why do you spend time with him when clearly everything he does is not a matter of opinion horrible. It is horrible.
And like, also Bran is like 5 years younger than these guys.
Yes.
He's not even someone's younger brother. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can. So then Snack breaks into the Field of Screams to share with his friends that he can't be a doctor anymore. He's like rehearsing this before he gets there, and then he gets jump scared by something. So then and then it's like it's all ADR. It's really bad. He runs up. I actually put a positive note. This is when I realized that the movie shot pretty well. I think the lighting and the color grading are occasionally quite good. There's some scenes where they speed things up. I don't like that. But the movie is color graded well and looks mostly okay. And when we eventually get to the creature that becomes the Instagram star, YouTube star, I don't know. That creature, kind of cool, but doesn't do anything, but kind of cool. So then the gang meets up with Snack to investigate the noise. Snack never tells them like he's going to leave the Dockers because of this event. They're investigating the noise. Mighty's insulin device makes a noise, and everyone hears a scary noise after that. Out from the shadows comes a moist-looking humanoid creature. It falls over as if exhausted. Yeah, moist. Ayla investigates. Bran says it's covered in crocamole, to which everyone says, "You mean guacamole?"
How do you get them
understand.
confused?
Ayla then has everyone tie it up and drag it to a nondescript area of Field of Screams. Ayla then hits the creature and quotes Theodore Roosevelt because she gets grades that are for A students. So of course she does. Mighty's insulin goes off again, and then the creature wakes up sniffing. It actually looks pretty neat with its practical effects, but the creature doesn't do anything, so we don't actually know if it's threatening. We just know it's a creature that is a humanoid that stands up. What did you think of the creature design? Was that something that was a plus?
I just felt like I couldn't tell what I was looking at for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks very sludgy. Like,
Sludgy is a good word.
Yeah, like, have you ever seen the Nightmare Before Christmas?
A long time ago.
So
I think, but keep going.
There's like, so I watched it. I usually like to watch it every year towards the holiday.
Christmas.
Christmas. I almost said Christmas for some.
I said Christmas.
That's probably why.
Halloween and Christmas.
Christmas. And then there's a creature in the Halloween world, the Halloween holiday, that kind of just looks like he's melting all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a very random thought that came to my head, but I'm like, he looks like that creature from The Nightmare Before Christmas, because it's just, he's very sludgy, and it just, again, it just looks like he's dripping all the time. And for this film, I just felt like it was a little too dark. So you couldn't really see a lot of the features. I wish that
it's very dark.
The face had some other colors on it, like other, if that makes sense, just like other shading or something, just to kind of distinguish between the eyes and the teeth and the gums, because it was all just kind of like one color.
Yes.
And that was a little confusing for me. I thought the body shape was interesting. I thought the hands were kind of interesting too. I couldn't tell if they were like claws or just like bumped up a little bit. It was weird. So I guess it was just the idea I thought was an interesting idea. I just think the details were missing. I think if some of those details were in there, it would have been better.
And the context, because it doesn't do anything. Like it kind of just shows up and they're afraid of it, but again, we didn't get an opening kill in the movie, so we just got bum fights. So it doesn't really like show us much of anything, which maybe actually that's quite intelligent, right? Because it tells us that the kids are the real monsters. No, the movie's not that smart. It's just, but it really misses out on the fact that like we don't know if this creature's a threat. They're just mean to it when they tie it up and hit it and quote presidents at it, I guess. So Roosevelt was a president, right? I think so.
Yes.
He is now. But yeah, he doesn't do much of anything, but at least he looks kind of neat, and I like his eyes. They're pretty cool. They're very bulbous.
I did think the eyes were cool.
Yeah, it makes him look softer, which helps a bit for what's going to happen a little later.
Yeah.
Ayla ponders their history of Field of Screams. I kind of quoted this before it happened. The scene, they step out of where they tied up this creature, and they step outside, and everyone else walks forward. Ayla and Scribble are talking. Scribble McHottie, and she kind of leans against something. And I said to Kat, she's going to go, remember when we were kids? And then she basically says that. She's like, remember when we were kids and we always went in here. It's like, man, beat by beat. I've seen so many of these movies basically at this point.
Nice.
She basically talks about how like they used to go to Field of Screams all the time. But then she starts to worry that if the creature is there when Field of Screams opens, it's going to affect the clientele. And Scribble goes, essentially, it'll be devastating. And it's like, why are they talking about the business acumen
of
the Field of Screams in Pennsylvania? And then I realized that it's because she has a 51% stake in the company's stock. So I'm just, what do I know? So
no, I thought she cared about the people. And then she said something along the lines of, this is like my safe place.
Yeah. This is my escape. Is kind
her
of what
escape, which is also very sad that this horror
they don't do anything. Whenever they're there, she just sort of like loafs. She just loafs around.
They're just like
just
sitting around.
Oh, it's so stupid. Scribble McHottie walks Ayla home, and Ayla's mom's boyfriend comes home and creeps on her. Nothing happens, but we know it's a setup for a future kill, so hold on to your hats. Regardless, Scribble goes home after Ayla kisses him goodnight. Ayla sneaks downstairs and steals the mom's boyfriend's gun because obviously he has one. He rides a motorcycle. Duh. And she puts it in her backpack. And that doesn't go anywhere later. She then undresses in front of an open window like all women do.
Oh my gosh.
And we see that Max is just outside her window despite not being in the previous scene. So I don't know why Max is there, but he's just watching while she undresses. She turns away, so you don't see much of anything. It's just her back. But if that's something you, as a listener, are worried about, then I guess you don't want to watch this movie. But really, it's just so non-provocative.
There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to watch this movie.
and sexuality is not one of them, really.
Just, you can add it to the list, but there's a lot of other reasons.
But for me, these are all positive. I think this movie's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Hey there, listener. Want to influence the podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support the show for $3 a month. In doing so, you'll be able to vote on a movie poll that picks a film we discuss each month. So jump on over there and have your voice heard.
Snack then takes Snacks to the creature because it's his namesake. He goes to Field of Screams in the middle of the night to do this. It cuts to a hidden camera that is in the room of the creature, but that never comes up later. I mean, it kind of does, but it never has consequence later.
Yeah.
Again, the creature design looks pretty good here, and the face even articulates, which I thought was pretty cool. My wife and I were very happy with that when we were watching the movie. But again, it doesn't do anything. It just eats like hamburger meat. So anyways, kids complain again about Mighty's insulin smelling bad. I don't know why this keeps happening. It's not even really funny. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Ayla then says that they'll be filming the creature and posting about it online, but all online content needs to go through her first. Also that Scribble will be viewing it remotely. It then does a reaction shot to Snack looking nervous, probably because he fed the creature at night. That's about the only, follow up to the fact that there's a camera in there. They bait the creature into coming into a vulnerable position so then they can shoot it. It recoils in pain. Again, reminder, the creature hasn't done anything yet. And it has huge eyeballs, so it's kind of cute. So when they're just like abusing it, it just kind of feels actually gross. Like it feels gross.
Yeah.
And for me, like I'm fine feeling gross watching a movie. That doesn't bother me. But because it's it's not that I can tell that's not what the filmmaker's going for, or the kind of grossness is not what the movie is going for. But you told me, not just told me, you showed me that you had a cringe face for most of the movie. Did you find that it was really setting in at this point?
Yes. No, I didn't like that part at all. I'm like, well, because I guess I'm just trying to understand like how I'm supposed to
like feel.
I guess not supposed to, but yeah, like I'm trying to get a sense of what is this film about? Like I'm getting all these words in my head and now I can't get them out. It's like, what do you want to convey? Who's the audience sympathizing with? Or who am I rooting for? Who am I against? And some of those things are pretty clear. Ayla is a bully and she's just, but what was confusing for me is how like you mentioned it in the very beginning of the film, they're all interacting with their parents because they they got busted from, trespassing, and then they had to be taken home. And you realize all these children in one way or another are being neglected or abused emotionally, or just they're not being poured into very well. Like their parents are failing them in some way. And so for Ayla, it's like her mom doesn't treat her very well. She's usually left alone with her mom's boyfriend, who's a creep. So it's like you want to feel for her, but then I found myself just never feeling that way because of just the long list of horrible things.
Yes.
Like it's hard to sympathize because I'm waiting for a tender moment from her, not from someone else interacting with her. It's just like, I want it to, and that's why I was waiting. Like, is there a reason she doesn't like Jenny? I had a thought where I was like, maybe she keeps whining about her crying so much because she herself is very sad. Yeah. And maybe she feels like she can't express it.
Jealous for the expression.
Maybe jealous for the expression, or maybe she just feels like she sees herself in Jenny. Maybe what Jenny is externally, she feels internally, and that infuriates her. It's like that self-hatred type of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was trying to make that connection, but it never really solidified. I'm kind of just trying to reason with myself why someone would do the things that they do, rather than the film kind of telling that story itself. I'm kind of just putting my own pieces together.
We need that scene in the movie where the character who's doing the bad things walks an old woman across the street.
Yeah, like something redeemable.
It, like, gives you more detail about like the things they like, the things they don't. But Ayla doesn't like anything. Like, perpetually is frustrated. The only thing she likes is scribble, but not really. Like, that's not enough. And so it's just really like strange. The only that's why for me, like, I think not only does Snack succeed because the actor, I think, for the most part, handles things well, except for one scene, which is a laugh out loud funny. And it's like a quick cut. I wonder if it's this. I wonder if you know which one I'm talking about. But I thought it was so funny, and it comes right at the wrong time.
Okay,
but he's the only one who teeters and is clearly the motivation for moving forward. But we kind of don't get enough screen time with him until later in the movie.
Yeah,
but yeah, it takes a while. Then the gang argues over if the creature responds to fear or the smell of Mighty's insulin. Regardless, it doesn't really matter. The solution to the question offers no insight to the story. And also, it's not that complicated to test. You would just tell Mighty not to show up sometime and see if the creature gets agitated. The creature, of course, also wasn't violent when Snack came by himself after all. So either that's clever sharing of information, or it's incidental, which most of anything that's smart in this movie is likely incidental, such as this scene. This scene kind of showcases the worst of the acting. Ayla talks about a dog knowing when you're scared. It is bad. Like I said, I don't typically like criticize acting like to a feat, especially if they're younger. But this is bad stuff. Like, it's embarrassing. And then you think it can't get worse, but we cut to Bran, who then talks about how maybe the creature is like a bear in heat, and his performance is worse. And it's just bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
And it stinks because this is kind of the only scene that feels like it's going with the theme, which is, previously the whole point of the movie is creating a viral sensation to have influence based on something unreal. And now the two of them are theorizing ideas. It's like socially hypothesizing things based on anecdotes and not on fact and not on statistic and not on like anything like not wisdom. So like, in that way, the scene's kind of interesting, but again, the movie's not very good and the performances here are not very good. And it showcases that their directing's not good because they didn't have them do it again, or maybe they did. But I don't know. It's not good. Ayla then sees Snack is uncomfortable with all of this, and she says she wants to talk to him alone. They step outside and they talk in vagaries. I could not tell. Both times I watched this, I can't tell if they're saying there is an implication that they slept together or not, or if they're talking exclusively about the creature. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Also, for one split second, Ayla's actor has a harsh Southern accent. I don't know if you heard that.
No,
but
I
it was
know
like,
I missed that.
it is harsh. I mean, it is
Oh.
really. It was out of nowhere. I heard it both times. Yes, I watched this movie twice.
Ugh.
The second time was to take all these notes. Ayla then meets privately with Scribble, and Scribble tries to cheer her up by first showing her brand's pervy pics of her. Again, they're not really provocative, but I don't know why that would make it feel better.
Right. Like, oh,
what?
thank you. But what does that mean? I thought it meant like he got them off of his phone.
Yeah,
so he
like,
doesn't have them anymore. But then how did he do that? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't. And he specifically says this will cheer you up. Okay, sure.
There's another scene that does that later too, where they're like trying to cheer them up, but it's like really awful. And I know you'll get to it.
I love this movie.
Continue.
It's, it's so funny.
Oh
man. Okay, so and then they go into this. Then he says, "Oh, by the way, Ayla, I got Jenny's personal cell number." Which for some reason she is elated. She's extremely happy to the point that they start making out. We are now 50 minutes in, and it is about a 3-minute long semi-sultry dance / snuff sequence where, and I'm using, I would say, coarse words, sultry and snuff. This movie's not graphic in any way.
No.
It's rated R because I think they say the F word a couple times, but it's really not graphic. There's a vulgar scene between like a Scribble and a teacher, but it's only dialogue. But anyways, 3 minutes of Scribble and Ayla dancing in a particular venue at Field of Screams. That looks kind of cool. Not the dance, the venue. And then it cuts to online videos of them abusing the creature. Again, it has not killed anybody. We do not know if it's capable of killing.
Right.
And yet we're watching them like beat it with a bat and shoot it. And nobody's happy. This is the scene where I was saying it's a montage, and it cuts to everybody. Nobody's happy. Only Scribble seems kind of happy. And then Ayla seems kind of happy, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hey. We have some Patreon goals we're trying to reach. If we get enough support, we'll review each God's Not Dead movie, as well as the Inhumans, that really bad Marvel show from a couple years ago. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and share your support.
It then, and I don't know if you saw this, but this would be an editing problem. It then cuts to Mr. Lewis at nighttime, red light. There's like a red gel light shining on him, watching these videos on his laptop. And that makes sense, of course, right? Because, this is a project. This is what it's all about.
Right.
But he looks introspective. But then it transitions to a daytime shot. And he's sitting in the same seat in the same environment, which means in the middle of the night, he was watching their YouTube videos at school.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even notice that.
Yes. And then it cuts to daytime and he's got the students in front of him. So I don't know what Mr. Lewis is doing.
Oh my
When you were talking about that the principal should be talking to Mr. Lewis about why is this kid crying, and you're also giving them A's, and then Mr. Lewis sleeps in the school. Mr. Lewis is a fictional character, but allegedly there might be something really inappropriate going on.
Oh my gosh.
And who can fault me for thinking this? This is what the movie's telling me.
Right. No, that's so weird.
I don't know why he was still there.
No, he wouldn't be.
What it probably was is because Mr. Lewis is in two environments. He is in the classroom and then he is at Field of Screams. So what they probably had was Mr. Lewis for like 2 days. And so they shot all the scenes at the school.
Yeah.
And they shot the next day at Field of Screams. Or even in one day, because the Field of Screams, I didn't mention this, but the movie is not day for night. They actually just shoot at night. There's no blue screening. Like it's not or not blue screening. There's no shot at daytime, put a blue layer over it to make it nighttime. It is it's actually like I said, the cinematography here is mid to really good. A couple shots are particularly good, especially with the creature, but if the problem really comes into editing and everything else.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you can't even get good music in this movie. So
no, it's
so bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Lewis is now talking about how he's going to give them A's for their videos. that the stuff is really good. This is when we learn that the project is about a myth named Crockamole. So it's the name that was given wrong.
Gosh, I hated that name.
I know it's bad, but me and my wife keep banging it up. We keep talking about Crockamole. So I guess the movie metatextually worked. So despite everyone mostly not liking the project, Max and Snack are clearly not into it. Yet Max is the first one to become upset when Mr. Lewis says that the video must be taken down because it's too graphic. But again, Max has not been into it. Like, he looks upset the whole time. So I don't know why his character is the one who gets frustrated. Ayla loses it and blames Jenny for being too soft, but Mr. Lewis says it's parents who are asking the videos to be removed, not Jenny. Ayla then reads YouTube comments to defend her reasons for succeeding in convincing people that the myth of the project is real, until she stops at one comment reading fake ! XD, which I thought was pretty funny. And she just closes her mouth. She just stops because one bad comment showed up. It's like she never, I don't know. Why are boomers? I'm probably not a boomer. I didn't see how old B. Harrison Smith, the writer-director. But why are people writing teens like they're not teenagers? I don't get it.
Right.
Fake XD. Okay, so then Max then stands up for the First Amendment when no one else will. And so he says he won't take the video down. I'm sure Elon Musk is very proud of him for standing up for free speech. And then he's going to go dox some journalists. Okay, so the gang is at Field of Screams, and they're all pounding about how people hate their videos. Ayla pouts more and goes, God, I hate people. And then she's mad because they risk their lives for an A. Again, there's been no threat yet. How can we get people to do the Crockamole challenge if they say it's fake? To which we'll cut away for a moment. And Melanie, what is the Crockamole challenge?
I still trying to figure that out. I wonder if they did have like plans,
like something.
Like have people involved with this creature, but maybe there was like another element to the project. So you know how like with a picture, like if you see the picture, like, you know, it's encouraging
spooks,
children
like,
to do
like Smile Dog and like Jack the Killer, Jeff the Killer, or whatever.
So it's like if there's like maybe they had planned to add this other element, like if you see this creature or something like that, something X, Y, and Z will happen. I don't know, but there's so many things that they don't clarify, and again, just a lot of
so
connections
vague.
that you kind of have to figure out for yourself. And I think that was what was also just really frustrating about the film.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And as Ayla's kind of doing this, I had a laugh out loud moment because Scribble has a really flaccid reaction to one of her. It's just she's yelling, and then it cuts to him, and it's so funny. It is worth the price of admission. It is so funny. Anyway, so she goes, we should throw a hater in there. Mighty's insulin goes off again, and Crockamole growls, only for Ayla to get more mad and tell Crockamole to be quiet. Again, Crockamole hasn't done anything. What do we think he's going to do?
Right. They're abusing him.
Brand then sends a YouTube poop of himself lighting the homeless man on fire to Ayla to cheer her up.
Melvin, I hated that scene.
And this begins the scene that will probably be most frustrating to people. For some reason, Ayla is just super easy to cheer up. You just have to show her photos of herself or YouTube poops or give her other people's numbers, and she's just totally cool. So she cheers up, puts some AirPods in, puts on a low-tier B-side imitation of an Explosions in the Sky song, and dances seductively around the Field of Screams attraction. And it's really uncomfortable. It's not graphic. Again, it's just it's like gyrating. It's like it's like a standing seizure, but in slow motion. It's not attractive. It's very weird. It's just what is it? My wife and I joked with her that, like, if you were a young boy growing up and you watched any animated movie where they showed a girl's midriff, so Fern Gully, you were like, I have a crush on her. So that's like the most that happens here. Because she has midriffs.
Right.
And so if you're in middle school, don't watch this movie or you'll have a crush on her. You'll have a crush on the worst person who's ever been fictionally created.
Right. It's like they hear all these horrible things that she's saying, and I understand that, like, kids aren't always thinking logically, and you know, it's just like when you're right. So when you're friends, it's like ride or die, like you're just gonna always be friends.
Yes.
But they just never look like they're okay with what she's doing.
They never look happy, but she's got a midriff, so they're cool.
They never look happy. They never look satisfied. She's dancing, and the weird part about the dancing is that all the boys are like surrounding her and just watching. And like you said, she put her AirPods in.
So she's the only one who hears the
she's
song.
the only one who hears the song. So it's just silence,
so
and then the boys just watching her. They don't even look happy about it. Or maybe Scribble. But
yeah, Scribble's like, yeah. It's
right.
weird.
And I'm just
I don't
like,
get it.
and I get it. I think with the film, maybe what the filmmaker was trying to do is just show how powerful she is, like her power
Right.
dynamic in the gang. And you already know that to begin with when she starts barking orders. Or like saying, "Oh, you're not going to tell anyone, are you?" But
Yes.
it's like to show like she's the leader, and kind of like this spell that she has on all of them, where she can just make them do whatever she wants to do. And I can kind of see why they would do that. It's a weird way to show that, but it's like we already knew that to begin with. But it's like, okay, I get it.
Which of course gets to a good laugh, because then Snack is the audience stand-in. And when Ayla starts dancing in front of Snack, he just goes, "Why are you doing this?
Right?
Why?" And it's great. I think it's awesome. Snack then leaves and defects from the group, more or less officially. And just when you were thinking this kid who's playing Snack could potentially grow into a good performer, he has this horrible cutaway reaction shot where he's stumbling out of the environment they were just in. He's kind of touching his face, like trying to act ashamed, but he doesn't know how to. So the director's just like, touch your face a couple times. And then he trips over a fence, and then he sort of lamely grabs a telephone pole, like, ugh. And you can practically hear him go like, "Why, Lisa? Why?" Like from the room. It is bad. It is so funny. I rewound it to watch it again.
Oh my god!
It's just like the movie, and like you really think, for me, I really expected this movie at some point to just get boring for a period of time, but it would just keep giving me something with the music or the dialogue or the vagueness of the film or Ayla just being mad or just something weird happening, and it would be one of the several facets that make the medium of filmmaking. And so for me, it's the gift that keeps on giving. This is all great stuff.
Hey, don't forget, there's a lot of fun content missing from this episode because you're not listening on Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support for $3 a month to gain access to uncut episodes with upwards of 40 minutes of bonus content each. You'll thank me later.
So anyways, the gang, and he trips over a sign that says docking station. So like, it's the place they used to be hanging out where they doxed people, I guess. Anyways, the gang, sans Snack, cons the homeless man with more money, food, or jail time with Ayla, I'm not sure, to go into Crocomoli's lair. 1 hour in and we have our first kill, and it's not that exciting or scary. Although we get some good lighting for one framed shot. And I also thought the music was okay here. But yeah, it's just not there. And the scene also, like, the first kill, Crocomole like bites into the homeless guy's neck, but it immediately cuts to the camera that's filming him, in Brand's hand. So you really don't get the visual that well. For me, that would be good later in the movie. But for the first kill, we are an hour into this film. For the first kill to not be something more like visually shocking was just a real letdown, because I want spectacle. That's why I'm watching movies. And so it's very silly. The gang then tension fights after they kill the homeless guy, and then they upload the video. Snack hears about it at school, although it's not sure he knows what the contents are. He then sees Ayla bullying Jenny at the water fountain. I don't know. She's got nothing else to do, so she just bullies Jenny.
Yeah, maybe she's bored.
Ayla is, which bullying is bad. Let's just make that clear, just like Eggman's curse. Bullying is not funny in movies. When it's absurd, it is. But that's because this is so stupid and so ridiculous. But like, real life bullying, not funny. Okay. Ayla is at Field of Screams for some reason, alone until her mom's boyfriend shows up asking for the gun back. She says they need to go get it. She's jumped by him before she gets the upper hand and pulls the gun on him, shooting him in the process. And then she pushes him in the room with Crocomole. And then she calls Jenny to apologize, but she's not. And before we see what's going to happen with Jenny, Snack tries to convince Mr. Lewis that the YouTube channel contains real events. And I actually thought this is a clever thing to do in the script. Mr. Lewis doesn't believe it at first, thinking it's part of the project, to then convince Mr. Lewis that it's real.
Right. Yeah.
And, credit where credit's due. A broken clock is right twice a day. Max overhears this at the door because this is Max's superpower, is creeping on people. So
yes,
I guess whatever.
He's very good at that.
The gang is then, and for everybody listening, we are in the home stretch. The gang is back at Field of Screams, and they have Jenny. Scribble asks why, and we get the best part of the movie for me, the part that I keep telling everybody to watch this movie for, because I think it contextualizes the film's sensibilities and why it's absurd. She basically says, because I hate her, since the first grade, you've cried and peed your pants, and you keep dragging the class down. We're told you're different, but you get the same grade as me, and we're not the same. I don't know. To me, it's the fact that if you cry, you're bad and you have to die is so funny. And me and my wife keep bringing this up because me and my wife are very emotional people. So we keep joking about how if you cry, we'll take you to Crockamole. I just think it's so funny that someone has to die because they cry too much. Oh, that's so good.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the high point. This is the peak for me.
Oh my gosh.
This is so funny. But it is terrible.
I literally have no words. I'm like, it speaks for itself. Melvin, I don't even have to comment. People are listening to what you're saying. And I'm sure they can hear how ridiculous this sounds. And
it's so stupid.
They're trying to give her some kind of motivation for doing what she's doing. And it's like, she's just pulling reasons out of the air. Like, you cry too much, you're a baby, and I hate you. It's just
so stupid.
It's so dumb. And it's like, we don't really need a lot of reasons to... You could come up with 1,000 reasons to make a character like the villain, like someone that everybody hates. They're like, oh, I hate this person. But I think sometimes what makes the villain interesting is when it's not just them being a villain, when there's a reason that you believe that they believe in.
Yes, villains work because they're antithetical to the protagonist. Yeah. And so in essence, they converse with the antagonist based on the actions they commit. And so like when you have an antagonist that doesn't have a protagonist or have anything to say about something.
Yeah.
Like, because you can have an antagonist who is antagonistic to society. And so that's why they do absurd things. So like a Joker to the Batman kind of thing.
Right.
Where like the Joker is interesting to people because he is like peak nihilism and existentialism in expression without dying. And so like that makes him something to be said. But Ayla has nothing to say. And the fact that like all she says is, I want to kill Jenny because she cries too much and pees her pants. Like that. Okay.
Right. Or we're going to take this project to the edge and I want an A+. It's just like, we keep bringing that up, but it's so ridiculous. And
all for an A. Like
all for an A.
To me, like all the meta text of just the silliness is so perfect. Like you're just doing this for good grades. Who does this for good grades?
Yeah, it's just
study. Like cheating is easier than this.
Sense. And worry about yourself. Don't worry about what someone else is doing.
Oh, that's what teachers say. Come on, you teacher. Don't say that.
Well, and I do say that a lot. Like, because this is true. As a teacher, and I'm sure if other teachers were to listen to this, they would completely understand. It's just the constant, he said, she said, but they did, and this, and there is like,
right. It's like worry about yourself, your own education.
Because it's just the. On the one hand, it's like you want to be sympathetic and you want to be understanding, and you know that there's always there's a reason behind everything that someone does. A lot of the time, it's not just out of nowhere. But at the same time, it's like sometimes it's over little things, especially when they're very, very tiny. And they're like, so-and-so moved my pencil, or just,
so-and-so cried too much.
this kid's touching the piano and you told them not to touch the piano. It's just like all these like little things. And so that's where the worry about yourself does kind of just is applicable in those smaller situations. But anyway, I'll leave that alone and we can move on.
It's so good. I love it. Anyway, so Jenny gets killed by Crockamole, and it's really awkward. Like it's like a head crush, but not. It's very post-production. It's clear they didn't know what to do. In a good movie or a well-made movie, this would be upsetting just because like Jenny really didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And it's just silly to watch the the good guys win in some capacity. And in certain movies, like a Refn movie, something like this would be bearable and grotesque at the same time in a way that's like satisfying. Here, it's just like it continues the absurdity and silliness of the whole movie. But again, also, I think it makes, for me, this movie is funny and enjoyable to watch because it keeps giving. But a scene like this, I think, would be what sets someone off to be like, no, this movie's gross and mean and nasty, and I don't want to watch it. So
Yeah.
teach their own. Because, like, essentially, they're just bullies and they're winning. So, like, that's not very fun. And, but again, to me, I'm 12 degrees behind it. I think it's so ridiculous. So, Mr. Lewis and Snack arrive at Field of Screams because Snack said he's going to show Mr. Lewis the creature, and Mr. Lewis is like, okay, fine. Snack takes him to Crocomole and the gang, jumps them. They interrogate Snack while Crocomole is agitated. Mr. Lewis is worried. He was worried that he was ultimately brought there to be killed by the group.
Right.
Of course, he was not. Snack was there just to prove it, but then the group jumped them. Bran says, "What? Wait, want to see what we did to Jenny?" And Snack gets really disappointed in everybody, so he just frees Crocomole anyway. So then, what would be a scene in another movie where you get to see the monster kill everybody, kind of like Cabin in the Woods, where the elevator scene.
Right.
We don't really get that because it's just a mess. Crocomole ends up killing everybody. He kills Mr. Lewis first, then Scribble, Mighty, and then Bran and Max. Ayla escapes with Snack running after her. We pause the movie to go on a tour of Field of Screams to some Kevin MacLeod freemium music. It is very bad music. We've already said that, but it is very bad music.
Yes.
Ayla, Snack, and Crocomole basically have a caravan chase going on. Ayla hides where she danced the first time with Scribble as she reminisces about better times. Footage not found. Until Snack witnesses her get killed by Crocomole. The movie ends with a podcast voiceover from the original host as Snack walks down a lonely road, the only road he knows, and he walks alone. And then the credits roll. And again, another song that does not fit the ending of the movie starts playing. It's more like an introspective, how far we've come kind of song. And
right.
It's just
not
because we didn't go anywhere. This movie went nowhere at 1 mile per hour.
I don't know if he learned anything.
That is where the scary things are. A movie that I found on Paramount Plus, a service that has nothing to watch except for Smile, I guess, right now, and Invader Zim. Well, Melanie, what do you think of my movie?
If it wasn't clear, I did not like it.
What wasn't clear? I thought the movie was clear. I thought it was totally clear.
Everything was explained. Nothing was vague. Not at all. No, it's not a good movie. And if you're someone who enjoys watching like bad movies for a good laugh, then this could possibly be the movie for you.
You have a 50% chance of enjoying it based upon the statistics of this podcast episode.
Right. And just go in with this information in mind. And I mean, you basically heard the whole film, but yeah, it was hard for me to enjoy it because I think I just found myself, rather than able to laugh at the characters, I just was like very frustrated by just too many things. So it just wasn't as fun for me as the last film. But I do agree that, I do like also that the film isn't super long. I think that it had that going for minutes. It. I like that it's very short, and we have a lot of long movies right now that are still coming out. But I like that it was short, and I liked the creature parts of it. And I'm trying to think of the things that I liked. And I did think that Snack did a pretty decent job.
I think this movie's a ton of fun. I think this movie, trying to find, everybody goes online to try to figure out what are the good, bad movies, right? And it's like The Room, Troll 2, and there's plenty of others. Every year there's usually one. And every year there's one people corral around to say, this is it. This is the bad movie. Last year was Dear Evan Hansen, which was, exquisite, based on just built upon one casting choice, and it completely deconstructs the whole film. It's really great in that way. And then the previous year was The Fanatic. I'm pretty sure it was the previous year. And so every year this happens. And I think most of the time people will listen to the zeitgeist to find it. Me, I will just literally watch anything, as is clear by this podcast, not just this episode, but I just put stuff on, and like, I love movies. I love experiencing them and participating in them. And so I like to find all kinds of experiences in this way. And so when I find a movie like this, where I feel like every scene has something to give me, I mean, from the start, the fact that it starts with bum fights and then it's an actual like homeless fight.
Yeah, like homeless people fighting. Yeah.
Within the world of the film, which they're like the fakest looking homeless people. Like one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years was Spree. And like one of the jokes is that the main character thinks his friend, who's an influencer, did a real video with homeless people, and the friend goes like, that was totally fake, and then it shows it, and it's really funny. It's a funny fake video. And so like, to then have a movie that's about influence, trying to be influencers, and it's all real, is just the first misstep, and it just keeps coming. And the thing you need with a good bad movie is that it's not long stretches of boredom, and it at least has something to give you. And to me, also something that's important is you have to almost always be a little confused, because this movie is very vague, and I think it probably intended to be clever with some of its stuff, but every scene I was kind of confused. I don't know what the crock-a-mole challenge is.
Right.
I don't really know what crock-a-mole does. I was never really quite sure why Ayla was so mad all the time. I didn't know why these people were friends. I didn't know what anybody's motivation was. I wasn't entirely sure what docking was. And it constantly had all that alongside the backdrop of Field of Screams. Looks pretty cool. You get some good locations. You get some cool scenes with the visuals. It's shot at night as opposed to day for night. And some of the shots just look good. And yeah, to me, all of that comes together to just celebrate what I love about bad movies. Plus, Kat and I keep realizing so many bad movies are made in Pennsylvania. And so we just kept getting more and more excited the more we find. Case in point, Dave with Scavenge, or even a more bigger name, M. Night Shyamalan. So like, there's just a lot to be enjoyed here, in my opinion. It's on Paramount Plus. I wouldn't say get Paramount Plus for it. Paramount Plus doesn't have really anything worth getting for.
Yeah.
So unless I guess you like Stars, but even then you have to get a Stars license or membership to do it anyway. So you just stick to Prime, I guess. But yeah, I think this movie is delightful. It's so funny and delightful in a sick way.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
So that's that's it. That's the movie.
There you go.
Thank you, Patreon supporters, for having a tie so that I could break it by having us watch the movie I want to watch using my podcast. So,
did you know Cinematic Doctrine has a blog? Visit cinematicdoctrine.com to read extended thoughts on movies or movie industry news from our contributors. Plus, you can find our podcast on there too.
I guess we'll just get into recommendations. Did you want to get us started then with recommendations as we close out?
Sure. I mean, I would totally believe it if someone already suggested this, but I was actually going to suggest The Iron Giant.
Yeah,
the film by Brad Bird, directed by Brad Bird. It's probably one of my all-time favorite animated films. And I just think the story is simple, yet just so wonderfully executed. I think the voice acting is fantastic. Even I think it's Vin Diesel's first. I think that's Vin Diesel that
animated
plays the robot.
Voice acting role. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
And so that's just cool to like think back on. I was like, oh, he's been doing this voice acting thing for a bit, because I think it came out in 1999.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty old.
Yeah, and it's just a great film about a boy and his robot, basically. And I remember being in the movie theater watching it and just kind of feeling very mesmerized, especially when you get, and I won't spoil anything, but there's just this really cool scene that happens towards the end of the film that was completely unexpected. And I just remember sitting in the theater like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. So I kind of love having those like really awesome, cool looking surprises. So it's a great family film too. So it's great for all ages. I think it's a great film, and I would highly recommend it.
I'm going to recommend, it was either this or Avatar, but everyone's already seeing Avatar.
Got it.
We invited everybody over to watch this movie called Roar. It is a crazy movie from 1981, directed by Noel Marshall, where he and his family are all in the film. And the premise is essentially that, like, Noel Marshall owns this preserve with hundreds of big cats. So lions, tigers, panthers, cougars, 2 elephants, and they're all real. And his family's now coming back to live with them. And there is a lion called Togar who is trying to become the pack leader. And there are poachers. And did I mention that there's a lot of big cats? And the whole movie's stressful.
A lot.
Yes, the whole movie is very stressful because these are real lions and tigers and bears, not bears, but oh my. And they're all like pawing and teething and just going after people. And they're playing, but it's like they're rough, they're big, and like, there's people getting injured constantly. It is
oh my gosh,
so crazy, but it is also really funny because it's not just, I mean, it is really entertaining to watch these animals interact with humans the whole time. And that's never not fun in the movie, which is impressive because you think that would get boring quickly. But the movie is also very clever and aware of itself. And so there's a lot of jokes and dialogue built around it or in setting. There's like a scene where Noah Marshall's talking to this one guy and he basically says, "Can you wait right here?" And the guy looks stressed. And Noel goes and there's just like 12 tigers around him.
Yes.
It's like, it is so funny. It's got a Blu-ray release, I think 4 or 5 years ago, so you can find it for real cheap on Amazon. I 100% recommend it. It is appropriate and accessible. I would even go so far as to say older kids would probably enjoy watching this. I don't think there's any language in this film. And they're cute. At the end of the day, they're cute. They're all lions. So, and it was shot 40 years ago. So whatever. Like, you don't have to worry about feeling like if it's unethical. I don't know. It definitely was unethical, but almost exclusively for the humans, really. But it is probably wrong a lot for the animals too. But anyways, ignoring the ethics of filmmaking and using animals.
Yes,
it is crazy. So I totally recommend this. Melanie, thanks for joining me on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
And for watching this movie that you did not like at all.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/cinematic doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirley-Ann, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck! We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the independent theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.